Call from the Grave episode. Who knows what it is? 8, 9, I don't know. Well, I think it's pretty self-explanatory. I'm going to talk about King Diamond. I never was as big a King Diamond fan as I was a Merciful Fate fan. But there are some incredible records, some incredible songs. It's an interesting story. And seeing as King Diamond is out with Merciful Fate once again, well, I've done a Merciful Fate one of these, so why not do a King Diamond one? It's not going to be a vinyl porn episode, although there is reasonable amount of 80s vinyl, original of course, but which color logo do you have? Some are blue, some are red. Mine is yellow. Well, anyway, before launching into some of this stuff, I suppose it is worth mentioning that King Diamond is now 66 years old, which makes his current vocal performances even more absolutely incredible and outrageous. His first band was called Brainstorm. Yep, shitty name, but 1974, 1976. Then he left to sing with local Danish band Black Rose, which will come onto one of their releases, a rehearsal release. Black Rose, of course, Thin Lizzy. So this is like late 70s. It's kind of more Uriah Heep sort of stuff, lots of organ. And then they move on to the Brats for a short while, sort of proto-metal, punk metal kind of stuff before settling into Merciful Fate. So there was quite a lot of jumping around between, let's say, 77 and 81 before Merciful Fate has formed. But if you want to watch the Merciful Fate one of these, it's there as a video. Go and have a look. But this is basically Merciful Fate were sort of torn in a few different musical directions as I understand it. Hank Sherman went on to form the band Alien, which I think is more like sort of straight, just hair rock kind of stuff. Some people swear by it, but I think that's a kind of hipster's choice, isn't it? I like the band that Hank Sherman formed after Merciful Fate. It's sort of like Guifra or that Guifra became House of Lords, didn't they? It's sort of like 80s heavy keyboard pumpy stuff. Well, whatever. The odd thing is that Michael Denner stuck with King Diamond, so did Timmy Hansen for Merciful Fate, but yet it is Denner who is absent from the Merciful Fate reunion and Hank Sherman who is in when he's the guy who, it seems, broke Merciful Fate up, so to speak. Well, look, bands are strange things. Who knows the politics that are operating there? So Merciful Fate splits up and the band are shopping around for a new label with this, with 3/5 of the band. And they just shop it in King Diamond's name. And here we go. Fatal Portrait. Absolute stone cold classic record. Iconic artwork. And this is one of the things about King Diamond, and I think along with so many other 80s heavy metal bands, is that the artwork on the 80s, like, it sold X amount more records than you can imagine. Think of bands like Voivod, think of Creator, all those incredible Edward Repka arts. They sold X amount more records, and King Diamond was masterful in this realm, and it was something that got forgotten. But we'll get into that because I think those things are important, and they are strong reference points in relation to how much a band is concerned about their image, their career, how much they take care of the aesthetic. I think reflects very importantly on where they are. Take, for example, Celtic Frost Monotheist, one of the best ever return records, aesthetically stunning. And it set a tone for people who are old Celtic Frost fans to go, oh, okay, they mean business. Which somebody like King Diamond, it should be paying, I think, incredible attention to these 80s records. This is I guess this is a face that launched 1,000 ships, so to speak. And on the back, you have King Diamond still in his sort of Merciful Fate vibing makeup. The rest of the band are looking sort of slightly big-haired. You've got Mickey D. Timmy Hansen is there. Andy LaRocque, who was not in the band to begin with here, but came in at the end, I think added solos, but didn't write the songs. The songs are mainly written by Michael Denner. In fact, Michael Denner is the assistant producer on this. He's kind of all over it. It's a very interesting sound. It's very sort of middling, high pitched, which I think, as in high end of the dynamic range. There's not much bass end in it. It's a very, very high kind of pocky drum sound. Sounds great though. So many incredible songs on this. Halloween, etc. What would I give it? I think you'd have to give Fatal Portrait a 9 out of 10 or an 8.5 out of 10. Do we have more vinyl porn? Little bit. Just take another. You can have double. I always thought it was Cleopatra when I was a kid, but I guess it's not. It's Melissa being burned as a witch, right? But when I was a kid, I was like, oh, it's Cleopatra on their album cover. Artwork by Studio Zion. Never heard of him. I wonder, is that a sort of hypnosis style art collective? Maybe I should have looked that up. Fatal Portrait just sort of set the band on their way and sort of, buried the Merciful Fate worry. This, Abigail, this is I suppose, the masterpiece, widely considered it's the record that he went on to tour in its entirety recently. It's more honed than Fatal Portrait. It's the pictures on the back, there's an air of Dokken about them, especially Mickey D, I think. Oh, there he is. Went on to play in Dokken. The cover, which, let's be honest, Dissection sort of took the Somberlane idea from. It's just fucking beautiful. It's incredibly well painted. Again, such a dynamic image. And this is a full marks record. Again, I don't think it's as good as Merciful Fate if we judge them on those things. It came out in 1987. Let's have a look here. May 1987 via Roadrunner Records. And again features Michael Denner and Timmy Hansen, who would leave after this record. But Funeral, Arrival, A Mansion in Darkness, it's just brilliant. And it's got a much more honed sound than Abigail. Fatal Portrait. The tones are there's a little bit too much sort of distance in them. The band doesn't sound as powerful and dynamic. But here, it's perfect. And it's again something I'll return to. So if you're going to be somebody who doesn't want to hear old man shouts at clouds about modern production values, then switch the dial right now. But Abigail is the masterpiece. Although I'm not so sure about Michael Denner's leather jacket on the inside. Leaves something to be desired. Timmy Hansen with the eye patch. That's a stroke of genius, really, isn't it? But this is, absolute stone cold classic record. King kind of still, he's changed the makeup a little bit, but he's still sort of vibing on the whole Merciful Fate thing. The makeup was to change a couple of times, of course. So maybe I'm being slightly unfair here. But the image isn't fully, separated from Merciful Fate. But Denner, this is, the residuals that Denner should be, I suppose, getting from live performances of these records is, of course, yeah, great. Thank you, Caroline, for interrupting my train of thought. It's what you get for living in the big city. Life in the big city. Anyway, yeah. Abigail. Total stone cold classic. Again, brilliant artwork, brilliant aesthetic. They're playing, this is the Andy LaRock that made Chuck Schuldiner want to get him in the band. It's the first time I think really that the full concept comes through. And these were, you heard whispers of the kind of dark and evil concept albums, and there's articles in some of the records here which I'll show you. But there was one famous one from just before King Diamond started. I think it was in Kerrang, where one of the journalists went after Merciful Fate for his, or King Diamond for his, does he really understand Satanism kind of thing. And there was a real air of mystery around King Diamond at the time. The photos, again, were so important, the kind of the aesthetic image of the one in the rocking chair. And there really was an awful lot of stuff to get your teeth into as a teenager. Now, I suppose many of you are watching Stranger Things and all that kind of stuff, and the sort of spooky horror, sub-occult, Dungeons and Dragons kind of element to it. And there's a lot of kind of heavy metal seeging into quite a lot of shows these days, but especially in Stranger Things. And it's only just a step away from, I was talking in the podcast about when I was 11 or 12, trying to play Dungeons and Dragons but listening to Manowar. Well, certainly King Diamond would have been one of the records that was going on the turntable after. And his impact visually, I think, is something that in the 90s and the 2000s, until you get to the whole Guitar Hero era, was maybe a bit forgotten. So May 1987, I think you're looking at a record that is full marks. At this time, what else came out? The Dark Sides, which has some bits of stuff I've cut out from magazines. Hammersmith Odeon, The Long Bad Friday. Friday 27th of November. Yeah. So what does the Dark Sides have on it? Well, it has Shrine, The Lake, Phone Call. I think Shrine is the only song there that's not on any record. Them, 156. Yeah, I mean, they were trying to cash in, I suppose, a little bit on the King Diamond aesthetic. It's quite a nice collector's item, but you'll see the makeup has changed. The aesthetic has changed. This one is a bit more grim. I never quite understood why the mustache got left, but was it makeup? I must admit, I often have the same problem when I apply my own makeup, but I'm not shaving off the beard anymore. But the king has persisted with the mustache and the sort of rockabilly hair since the year zero, since God was a boy. I was kind of wondered about kind of leaving not putting any makeup, let's say, in the neck and the hair and the, kind of messing it up a little bit. I'm talking about makeup too much now, aren't I? Anyway, The Family Ghost. Again, not so sure about the photos. Family Ghost and Shrine. Shrine, which is also on, well, I just said it was on nothing else, but it's on The Dark Side, obviously. The Lake. Okay, The Lake is the song that's... Anyway, I'm not so sure about the scrunched up duck face. King is doing duck face here before duck face was a thing. It's just a nice collector's 12-inch. No big secret to that. Shrine is a previously unreleased track. I mean, it's from Abigail. What do you want? Now, I have to admit, this fucking thing, I should have come to this before, because this is 1985, so this is before Abigail. There's one here, I think an image of one of the version of this where he's, with a reindeer or something, and this really pissed me off when I was a kid, even when I picked it up the first time at 12 or 13. And now you're talking about a precocious kid who thought grandfather, who were those four men? On Manowar Kings of Metal was fucking childish when I was 13. I hated this shit, this kind of novelty stuff. As it turns out, No Presents for Christmas has a kind of cool riff to it, but novelty records. It's a weird thing because Merciful Fate was that bit more serious, and the King Diamond kind of didn't seem afraid to step into elements of novelty. And he never really seemed to quite get punished for it. Maybe that's because when black metal came along in the early 90s, the main reappraisal of early 80s black metal didn't quite include King Diamond. King Diamond was sort of seen, I suppose, as a bit more hair rock, a bit more showy, hard rock kind of stuff than black metal. So there was a kind of disassociation there, and people didn't judge Evil, or Melissa, Evil, Melissa or Don't Break the Oath the same way. Because for me, this certainly was a mark against King Diamond. You can go, oh, it's just, you know, call me the black metal Grinch if you want, but I still have the bloody thing. But no, no, sir. And now here's a controversial opinion. But excuse me here while I fiddle about with the discography here and bring up. This is my least favorite, them, of all of the first few King Diamond records. Brilliant artwork, again, incredible aesthetic. I mean, look at that. It's so fucking cool. And the band pictures, King is in an insane asylum with his insane grandmother. But, you know, grandma, cup of tea, blah, 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 whatever, you know, that first line. But you see, by 88, I guess I was growing up quite a bit. Well, and 88 to me is Bathory, Bloodfire, Death, Pestilence, Leprosy. And don't get me wrong, I still love King Diamond. But Bye Bye Missy, there's something about this, Mother's Getting Weaker. There was something about the concept on this that's just sort of left me a bit on the shore. Maybe it just got a bit too poltergeisty, the movie. A bit too, I'm not going to say silly, because it's a very involved, kind of cool, it's a kind of cool idea. And the idea that he put so much thought into the story, I mean, it's great. But, you know, the opening, well, like, Grandma, welcome home. You've been gone for far too long. Let me help you out of your chair. Grandma. It's like there's too many grandmas in this song for me. And the one, where's the song with the blood was running into the teapot. Then I heard them laugh. A bit of this is in a cup of tea. Is it what it? I'm like, do the story, but stop going on about grandma and cups of tea. Would have been my advice at the time. But look, it's a great record. It really is a great record. I don't think it's as good as Abigail. I find the sound a bit moves back into Fatal Portrait. You know, the sort of area that occupies sonically. There's very little bass end on this record. Now, this is Hal Patino on the bass, new bass player. So Timmy Hansen of Merciful Fate fame is gone. Pete Black, who's here with a harp. He has replaced Michael Denner. So Michael Denner is gone, and I think, you know, that says a lot. The songwriting kind of changes. This has got Andy LaRocque kind of all over it. This is more LaRocque style. It's, you know, becoming a bit more proggy hard rock. Well, not proggy is not right the word, but it's missing that Michael Denner kind of diabolical swagger in the riffs. You'll know what I know. You'll know what I know. You'll know what I'm talking about. 1988. What would I give it? Like I said, I keep saying this. I'm going to bring up a little number at the bottom. Look, it's 8.5. It's 8. It's 8 out of 10. 8.5 out of 10. Any less than that would be ridiculous. I just don't happen to like it as much as what happens to be the next album, wherever that is gone. Conspiracy. You interrupt your own flow by failing to collect the record from the racks. Blah, 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 blah. Conspiracy. I mean, look, this is my second favorite album after Abigail. I prefer it to them. I think this is a huge sounding record. It's the best King Diamond ever sounded. The tone is massive. Chris Sangarides, who is sadly dead now, but made some incredible records. Painkiller, amongst others, seems to have done a star turn on this. It's Sleepless Nights, At the Graves, Cremation. It's just bangers. It's a brilliant record. It's the best sounding. It's a big bass end, killer drum sound. Mickey D is all over this record, and I would contend the last classic King Diamond record. And the aesthetic kind of sucks, but sucks in a kind of cool way. I mean, compared to the albums previously, it's like they just went, just stick a picture of me on the front. There is some cool stuff in the inside. The kind of comic book stuff, which is the same as the t-shirt here. I think there was a comic book made of this, which came with Kerrang or something. I've cut out here a studio report of the time. You can see Chris Sangarides here, whatever. The King is modeling what appears to be a sort of Kurt Cobain, Weezer style, woolly sort of, I don't know, woolly waistcoat. He's got his satanic bling still rocking, but little bit odd. Speaking of which, if you go back, you can find pictures of the Weezer guys with spikes and studs and Voivod shirts back from the early 80s. Used to be that site, Metal Sludge had them. And where is that now? Anyway, Conspiracy continues on the story from them. It's a Stone Cold classic record. Stone Cold classic record. My second favorite. Now, then we get to, well, this is a bit odd. This is a white vinyl promo 12-inch of them, which has Behind These Walls, an Eye of the Witch on it, which I guess that was a rumor that back in the day in the 70s, when the promo vinyl was ready somewhere in some pressing, plant, or when it came into the record company, they would send it over by courier to the journalists with a gram of coke in it, going, and please let me have a good review, and whatever the new, I don't know, Elvis Costello record or something. Where the fuck is the normal version of The Eye? Yes, The Eye. This is the last great King Diamond record, in my opinion. It's a solid 8.5. The story is cool. It's an interesting record, and it's a bit slower, a bit darker. There are big Deep Purple Uriah Heep vibes on this, lots of Hammond organ kind of stuff. The story is pretty cool. It's about an amulet through which, when you wear, you can see the horrors that were visited upon the people who wore it in the past, one of them being a witch. It's a cool record. No other way about it. A couple of people have told me this is their favorite record. I don't know about that, but it certainly sits in the canon of the first four. I would put it fifth, but certainly just behind them and Fatal Portrait. Cover aesthetic, pretty cool. Pretty cool, but kind of not really that cool, in a sense that it's quite striking, but it's certainly, this little dude here could be done in a slightly different, a slightly more evil fashion, if you ask me. Robert Falcao, who did Conspiracy, does this one. Good job, Mr. Falcao, whoever you are, because you did some sterling work on this. And it was made in Sweet Silence Studio, where Metallica did, of course, some of their stuff. Copenhagen, June, August 1990. It's a great record. And here's where things begin to change for King Diamond, if you ask me. And that is, it's clear he moves to the USA at this time, finds some musicians in America, takes a couple of years off at a time when heavy metal was just about to go down the kind of tubes, 91, 92, replaced by thrash, by death metal, traditional heavy metal, hard rock, and let's say King Diamond was more hard rock in places than heavy metal sometimes, or at least it straddled the line between the two. That's a good. Anyway, we get some time off, and then we get this. And that's where my King Diamond vinyls end. It looks like shit. Spider's Lullabye. Aesthetic is crap. Band photos, like, compared to them, with all due respect to the guys who play on it, Herb Simonson, Chris Estes, and Darren Anthony, they aren't Michael Denner, Mickey D. They aren't of that standard and caliber, and it appears like that. He just seems to have taken a photo from the Conspiracy photo shoot. It all smacks of thrown together, and by all accounts, it was recorded in the USA. Andy LaRocque went over there. They were out of their comfort zone in Denmark, and this is a decent record. It's not bad. It's a 7 out of 10. It doesn't have a concept album or a concept to it. Poor picture on the back. For someone who took so much care and attention aesthetically in the 80s, it was really, you're going to witness now a slew of records that this doesn't seem to be much attention to detail in those regards. Spider's Lullaby, solid record, a worthy addition. I have some of the others on CD, can't find them, so you'll have to put up with when I bring up a little square as we go through the rest of them. But it's the last album, I think, that's any good. The Graveyard. The Graveyard is 1996, so he throws out another album a year after. Let me look at my... I've been making some notes. Graveyard. This is a lo-fi production. This is... Sounds like somebody built a studio at home and decided they could record it at home. Like I said, Steve Harris syndrome. Sorry, Steve. This is a poor record. It sounds like a home recording. There's almost no bass at all in the album. The album cover is kind of crap. Trick or Treat, Lucy Forever. Same lineup as the previous record. Andy LaRocque. All the songs are King Diamond, with the exception of 5 are co-writes with Andy LaRocque. I don't know. It's Massacre Records picked them up, so that'll show you the kind of, as they were falling from branch to branch, I suppose, asking for what that usually means when you see a band who have lots of different record labels in a row, with the exception of the first few Primordial, is that for big bands, they were asking for too much money as their advance. The record sells poorly, and the advances are usually incremental. They go up. So let's say X band asks for €100,000 in 1990 something for X record. It sells 28,000 copies, and the label goes, "Whoa, we've got a big loss on this, and the next album's going to cost us 120." So they just go, you know what, you're free to leave. You can go. They let them out of the contract. So when you see sometimes big bands, you'll see this with Megadeth, you'll see this sometimes with Slayer, or sometimes with some bands like Manowar. They pop around from big label to big label, and somebody picks them up in the hope that they're going to hit that 250,000 record sales. Then realize the next advance is huge and just kind of go, we cut our losses here. The Graveyard is, I've given it 5 out of 10 here, which would make it the poorest King Diamond record, in my opinion. Yeah. And you're going to find Voodoo, 1998. A new drummer, and the same with guitarist and bassist, Herb Sampson, Chris Estes. So those guys stayed for 3 records. Voodoo 1998, kind of cool southern gothic vibe to the story, which could be really interesting. And again, this sort of strange distant sound, crappy drum sound, early trigger sounding bass drum. It's quite aggressive tone. It's almost like a black metal guitar sound, which I don't really understand. But it sounds to me again like people are recording parts in different studios, sending them in. People are adding things. It doesn't sound like a band rehearsing to me. Again, most songs written by King Diamond. Andy LaRocque has a few actual music credits. Sorry, not music credits. He has like 4 or 5. Chris Estes got 2 in. Well done, Chris. Dimebag Darrell does a guitar solo on it, according to what I'm looking at here. Yeah, it's, again, I get it. Completists want all the album. Voodoo, I'm not going to give much to either. It sits along with The Graveyard as a 5, 6 out of 10. That might sound harsh, but you've got to compare it to the standard from which it came. House of God then is the 9th album. This is 2000. What have I got written about this record? Again, it's got a weird, processed, ploddy drum sound. I mean, I hate laboring the point about this, but when you've had a band who have such incredible tones, dynamics, and aesthetics, you can't be expected to not comment on it just because everything is then about iPod headphones or in-ear. You know, like, it seems churlish to keep complaining about the sonics and sound when it's clear most people listen to things through, you know, little headphones or speakers. And so the magic of the 80s and the 70s, when bands had huge drum sound and put care and attention to so much tones, this became a lost art. Blah, 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 blah. Became a lost art. And an album like House of God perfectly exemplifies that. It features Glenn Drover, who went on to be in Megadeth, a bassist Paul David Harbour I've not heard of, and the last to feature another drummer. So just a revolving lineup of musicians at this time. And House of God has a sort of it says Rennes le Chateau, so a sort of southern French religious, angels and devils appearing in the, at the pulpit sort of vibe. It's again another 5 out of 10 record, I would say. It's got this again ploddy sound, kind of heavy processed drum sound, which has no production dynamics. Not bad. Song Black Devil is pretty cool. Song House of God is pretty cool. It's not, it's really, it's not bad, but it's not great either. Made in Nomad Recording Studio, Carrollton, Texas. Nomad Recording Studio. That reminds me that maybe Absu went in there once or twice. Anyway. What else have we got? We've got, well, actually, something cool came out here, which is got very little love, and that is 2001, A Night of Rehearsal, which is Black Rose, which is a whole load of songs that just never went anywhere from King Diamond's band between Bratz and Merciful Fate. Black Rose, which I guess is like 79, 78, 80. It came out on Metal Blade. Great. Really an interesting discovery while doing this. I'd never really listened to it properly. It's great Uriah Heeping, Deep Purple, keyboard heavy, some different kind of singing, some kind of cool riffs. Should have pilfered some of those songs for King Diamond Records, sir. Anyway, definitely worth checking down that one. But that's a little aside that feels like something given as a kind of a stopgap, So, because they're moved back to Metal Blade. And so we get the 2002 Abigail II, The Revenge. I remember with Primordial around this time, we were offered a tour with King Diamond in Europe, I think 10 or 12 days. I think Einherjar did it instead of us. For some reason, they wanted like an up-and-coming pagan metal band. It's a shame that we couldn't do it. But, back then, King Diamond wasn't yet this huge household name headlining festivals. By and large, that tour was 250 people. It wasn't huge. The fees weren't huge. The band were at this sort of middle period in their career. This one has artwork done by Travis Smith. It looks like somebody internally has gone, come on, we need to step up the game with the artwork and the aesthetic. It looks pretty cool. It's got a pretty cool aesthetic to it. But, again, suffers from the same thing. We have Mike Weed returning on guitar, which is interesting because he played on the Merciful Fate albums after Michael Denner left in the 1990s, and now is a mainstay of Merciful Fate in the new returning Merciful Fate, which is kind of strange. He came from Hexenhaus, I think. He also wrote, I think, the song Black Candles on Nightfall by Candlemass, the acoustic intro, if I'm not incorrect. That's proper nerd stuff. If not, it's just some nonsense that just went bleh out of my brain. Abigail II, again, it's a poor sounding, kind of dull record. Sounds like a drum machine. It has a smack of trying to revisit a classic to try to revive a career, even though something else was around the corner to revive that career, which was incoming very, very soon. It's not great. It's not great, in my opinion. I would 5 again, maybe. It's just, it's not great. So, 11 studio albums. The Puppet Master. The band move again back to Massacre. So you kind of see what's happening here. They're jumping around from label to label. This is the 11th studio album. And what have I said about this one? The song Magic is pretty fucking cool. One thing you'll notice about a lot of these records is how similar that some of the riffs are sounding to Megadeth. It seems like Andy LaRocque would have made a great guitarist in Megadeth. But there's some similarities with where Megadeth were at this time. To me, this is the best album post The Spider's Lullaby. Of all the albums, the sort of 5 or 6 that are there in a kind of canon of relative forgetfulness, this one is maybe the best one. The story takes place in a puppet show in Budapest in the 1700s, and this couple end up being turned into undead puppets by the puppet master and his wife. Okay, why not? You've got Hal Patino back on bass, Matt Thompson drums. Yeah, I mean it's the best one of the last few, in my opinion. even though that's like 2003, so it's 20 years old. There are lots of live records and compilations and things like this to get your teeth into if you really want to. Um, I'm not going to review them. They are what they are. But this is maybe the best one, you know. Give Me Your Soul, Please. Massacre Records again. 12 studio album. This is the last new music that King Diamond has made. It's 15 years ago. Again, it's quite hard sort of metal. It's got that sort of, again, Megadeth sort of techno-y, thrashy kind of stuff going on. It's okay. It's, you wonder how come the band didn't kind of lean into some of that, the organy kind of sounding stuff. It's relatively poor-ish production. Standard for the time, I guess, to not sound like as great as things did in 86 and 87. Look, what can you do? I think people want to spend less money on things. They're trying to save money on their advances. I get it. But the idea of getting a big drum sound, an open drum sound, which doesn't have the same triggered snare and bass drum thing, I can't stop giving out about the same thing. The cover is kind of shit. Kind of looks like a cheap, shitty horror movie. Anyway. Never Ending Hill, yeah, it's okay. 5 out of 10, whatever. There's the Dangerous Meeting compilation, Nightmare in the 90s. Do you really need that? The Best of King Diamond, loads of things. And there was one single in 2019. What is this fucking single called? Let's have a look. Because I just listened to it before this. That'll show you. Masquerade of Madness. Yeah, showed an improvement. Pretty good sonically. Again, not 1989, or 1990. Pretty good sonically. You've got Songs for the Dead live at the Fillmore in Philadelphia. Pretty good again. And I saw King Diamond on this in New York, and yeah, it was great. The show was cool, and it was awesome to see him come back. This career return. Because don't forget, I think it's 2009. You've got the Guitar Hero thing, the Metallica, kind of patronage, and King Diamond becomes a household name somewhere in the end of the 2000s, the noughties, 2008, 9, 10. An iconic image that people who don't even know metal recognize the corpse paint. He became an icon, and this is what enabled him to return to the stage and play headline festivals. And it's odd considering that realistically he's just playing songs from 85 to 90. No one is really that interested in hearing songs from Voodoo or whatever. So he spent a long time languishing in a kind of purgatorial area of his career. I mean, doing okay, no doubt. You've got money coming in from Metallica and all this kind of stuff. But his role as a sort of cultural icon, not just a heavy metal icon, wasn't yet solidified. And then Guitar Hero came along, the Merciful Fate medley, which was on the Garage Revisited album, which is brilliant, by the way. Hetfield does an amazing job on it. And he popped up singing that in a few places. And, all of it now has placed him in his mid-60s at this incredibly healthy place in his career. And you have a feeling if there's a new King Diamond album, it would hopefully sound great and have, proper aesthetics. And the stage shows the new King Diamond Merciful Fate look fucking cool. His voice sounds great. Fate sound fucking super electric on the new footage. I'm going to see them hopefully soon now in a week or two. And it all points, hopefully, to finally some new music. Because don't forget, King Diamond himself hasn't given, other than this one song, a new song. There's been no new Merciful Fate stuff since 9, great album. There's been no new King Diamond in, one song in a single in 2019. So what does that mean? That realistically means Dreams of Horror. Okay, so this is like a sort of best of kind of thing. I'm just flicking through Spotify here. This realistically means in the last 22 years, King Diamond has made 4 records, 4 new albums since 2000. So, but he's only made one record of original songs since 2003, 2004, yeah. It's a long time. It's about time we have some new fucking cool music. And yeah, the 20 years ago, a night of rehearsal, King Diamond and Black Rose, 20 years ago. If it came out in 2001, that should be 1981, but it sounds like 78. Anyway, great. Locked Up in the Snow, whatever that means. Holy Mountain Lights, Crazy Tonight. Great stuff. There you go. One of the biggest heavy metal icons there is, King Diamond. Four absolutely seminal classic records, a fifth brilliant one pretty good one after that, and then since 1995, in my opinion, not much to write home about, and not much that you're really missing if you don't have. I get it, it's got elements which are cool, but let's hope that we get a new cool fucking record, and please don't record it in your home studio, would be my advice. My friends, call from the grave. Sorry I dragged the ass out of this one. King Diamond. There you go. Grandma, a cup of tea, etc.